Boltzmann brain. Boltzmann brain is a thought experiment that suggests that given enough time, a self-aware brain could randomly form in the universe due to quantum fluctuations. This hypothetical brain would have memories and perceptions of really living in a structured reality, even though it is just a temporary, random occurrence in a chaotic universe. This theory asks if it's more likely for the universe to exist, with all its complexity, or for a single brain with false memories to appear randomly. If the latter is more probable, it implies that everything you experience might just be a brief hallucination by a
I do not believe that for one single
Boltzmann
bit.
brain. Solipsism. Solipsism is the idea that only your own mind can be known for sure to exist. According to this theory, the outside world, other people, objects, and events cannot be definitely proven to exist beyond your own perception. This is because all experiences are subjective, meaning they are understood through your individual mind. So while you may see and interact with the world, solipsism questions if the world actually exists on its own.
I thought about this actually. I don't believe it's true for a single bit, right? Because if one can picture another hallucination that another person doesn't, that's just weird. I don't believe it's
If it's all just created by your mind, you have no way to know. The teletransportation paradox. The teletransportation paradox is a thought experiment that explores the implications of teleportation and identity. Imagine a teleportation device that scans a person's entire body and mind, mapping every atom and neural connection. The device then transmits this information to another location, where a new, identical body is constructed, perfectly replicating the original person, including their memories and personality. Paradox arises when considering what happens during this process. Is the person who arrives at the destination the same individual who entered the teleportation machine? If the original person is disassembled at the point of departure, is that person effectively killed? If so, then the new person created at the destination, while identical in every way, is technically a different individual.
Okay, I think that it is a different individual, basically. I believe that the original person is killed, and the clone is just a clone, or just a different person, or a different individual. This is true. The egg theory? Oh my god. Get this down! So, next is the egg theory.
The egg theory. The egg theory is a thought experiment that suggests that every person who has ever lived or ever will live is actually the same being, experiencing life in different forms and at different times. The theory proposes that when a person dies, they are reincarnated as another person without any memory of their previous lives. This process continues until that being has lived every human life in existence. According to the theory, the universe exists as an egg, a place for this single being to grow and mature through the experience of living many lives. Once all lives have been lived, the individual reaches a higher state of consciousness and becomes like a god, completing their spiritual evolution.
I don't believe this for a single moment. I could have been Jesus. I could have been you watching this. I could have been Joe Bartoluzzi. I could have been the person making this. I could have been the person that invented the egg theory. This is very interesting, but I do not believe it, right? Because say there's an internal being, right? To say there's an internal being, to say that you can't live or it can't die. That means that it wouldn't have possibly happened. That means that this egg theory is it's not true.
The omnipotence paradox. The omnipotence paradox is a
Isn't this one like if God can make anything, he can make something that even he can't withhold? And then if he can't, then he's like not all powerful.
thought experiment that challenges the concept of omnipotence, or unlimited power. It asks whether an all-powerful being like God could create a stone so heavy that even they cannot
it's this one
lift
interesting.
it. The dilemma arises because both possible answers seem to limit the being's power. If the being can create the stone, they cannot lift it, which means there's something they cannot do. This implies a limit to their power, contradicting the idea of being all-powerful. On the other hand, if they cannot create such a stone, this also indicates a limitation, as they are unable to do something that should be within the scope of omnipotence. But God might be over logic itself, or one might say that by omnipotent, we mean a being that can do anything that is logically possible. Being all-powerful doesn't mean doing logically impossible things like creating a square circle. It means having power over everything that exists. Logical impossibilities, like a square circle, aren't real things that can exist, so it remains just a cool debunked thought experiment. Antinatalism. Antinatalism is a philosophical position that argues against giving birth, suggesting that it is morally wrong to bring new individuals into existence because life itself inherently involves suffering, pain, and hardship. So it is better not to create new lives that will inevitably face these challenges. One key argument in antinatalism is that coming into existence exposes individuals to more suffering than joy, making it not worth it. Additionally, some antinatalists point out the environmental and ethical implications of overpopulation, arguing that it contributes to suffering not just for individuals, but for society as a whole and the planet.
Okay, so basically what it means is that if you believe in antinatalism or an antinatalist, then you're chosen to be infertile or just not have any kids or anything like that because you're obviously going to put them in pain and suffering. I don't believe that, and if you believe that creating life is beautiful, go for it.
You are not free. This theory about the absence of free will from human life suggests that individuals have the ability to make choices and take actions based on their desires. However, they do not have the ability to control the will behind any of their actions, thus making them a slave to their own desires. In order to prove this theory, the following thought experiment is proposed. If you're deciding between which ice cream flavor to pick, chocolate or vanilla, and end up deciding that you genuinely want chocolate, there is absolutely nothing you could do in that situation to change that desire, unless an external factor that you also cannot control is involved, such as finding out that vanilla ice cream is cheaper or that it's not as unhealthy. This shows that the only way for you to do anything is by wanting to do it, which we already determined you cannot control, or by being forced to do it, which you obviously cannot control either, thus proving that free will does not exist.
If this theory was true, then you wouldn't have a choice to watch me or anything.
Ship of Theseus. The Ship of Theseus is a philosophical thought experiment that questions the nature of identity and change. It begins with a ship owned by the hero Theseus, and over time, as the ship sails, its wooden parts decay and are replaced with new ones. Eventually, every original part is replaced, which leads to the central question: is the fully restored ship still the Ship of Theseus?
I'm gonna say yes. Alright, so let's put it in another perspective, right? So you have dead skin cells that are dying and you're just getting more reproduced. You're still the same being and the same human, just in a different form or different matter, you know?
Complicate matters, suppose the original parts are gathered and reassembled into a ship. Now, there are two ships, one composed entirely of new materials, and one made of the original components. This scenario showcases how definitions are artificial and not as stable as we think. Does the ship retain its identity despite having all its parts replaced? Which ship is the true Ship of Theseus? Ethical egoism. Ethical egoism is the philosophical theory that individuals should always act in their own self-interest and have no regard for the consequences of their actions on others. This theory asserts that actions are only morally right if they benefit the individual performing them, emphasizing that values like sympathy and altruism were an idea constructed by weak individuals who could not assert themselves in society, so they had to make up an entire moral system to justify their incompetence. Ethical egoism argues that, like all other animals, we have a deep desire to secure our own survival, and we should not deny it or act against it, as it would be unnatural and damaging to do so. Furthermore, ethical egoists argue that by pursuing their own goals, individuals may also contribute positively to society, as their actions can lead to overall better outcomes for other people as well. Roko's Basilisk. Roko's Basilisk is a thought experiment suggesting that a future artificial superintelligence could be motivated to punish or torture individuals who knew about the possibility of its existence but did not actively help in bringing it into reality. The purpose of this punishment would be to incentivize people to support its development. Essentially, the AI might create virtual simulations where those who fail to assist in its creation are tortured. Esse est.
This is your brain.
Oh my god! So basically, what it means is that if you made AI and you don't support it anymore, then AI is gonna hate you and force you to like it. If not, then you're done. You're done out.
Percipi. It means that everything only exists if it's being perceived. For example, if you sit on a chair and stand up without looking at the chair has ceased to exist. Quantum immortality is a thought experiment stemming from the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. This theory suggests that a conscious being cannot experience their own death because there exist alternate realities where they continue to survive. The core concept proposes that every decision or event creates multiple branches of reality. In life-threatening situations, there will always be at least one version of reality where the individual survives. Therefore, when faced with danger, the individual's consciousness only perceives outcomes in which they remain alive. As a result, quantum immortality implies that individuals would perceive themselves as immortal as they can never experience their own death.
What it means is that if you're living right now, you're seeing this video, but in a different life, or in a different world, you might have died way earlier.
The knowledge argument. The knowledge argument, often illustrated by the thought experiment known as Mary's Room, was proposed by philosopher Frank Jackson, who created a scenario in which a girl named Mary is a brilliant neuroscientist who knows everything there is to know about the physical aspects of color, but she lives in a black and white room and has never experienced color herself. One day, Mary leaves her room and sees a red apple for the first time. The knowledge argument poses the question, does Mary learn something new about color when she sees the apple? Jackson argues that she does, because although Mary had all the scientific knowledge about how color perception works, her experience of seeing color for the first time provides her with new information that she could not have known while confined to the black and white room.
If she knows everything but learns something new, did she actually know everything? That's basically what it means, I'm guessing.
This thought experiment suggests that there are non-physical aspects of knowledge, specifically the subjective experiences of perception. The infinite monkey theorem. The infinite monkey theorem is a thought experiment that suggests that given an infinite amount of time, a monkey randomly pressing keys on a typewriter or keyboard would eventually type out any given text, such as the complete works of William Shakespeare, helping to understand how long infinity really is.
So, basically, what it means is that if a monkey types down every single thing, or every single phrase, or every single, saying or sentence, paragraph, any word, any phrase, every single mumbo jumbo you type on a keyboard or whatever, then it'd probably take forever. Probably take infinity years, probably take everything. And that just shows how giant, how giant infinity is. Thank you so much for watching. Catch you up with a new video.